Hello. Good morning. Today's topic, as you can see, is going to be incident investigation. This is one of those topics that's really important that we have to do in our line of work. Is main thing we're trying to do is find out what the root cause, what causes us to be, had the situations that we have, the issues that we face, and one way we can do that is by having a good incident investigation program. Kind of the way the program is going to work, we're going to dive into some different things. We want to establish a good protocol and a process for an effective incident investigation. What do we need to go out there and do whenever something happens? What types of incidents do we need to investigate? Should we just forget about the little things and focus on the big things, or do those little things also lead to these major accidents? And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. We're also going to give the OSHA guidance on the incident investigation process. They have some steps that they want us to go through, some things they want us to look at. And so as we go through this program, that's kind of what we're going to see today. We're going to make sure that hopefully by the time we get done, we're able to look back, and if we don't have a program in place, we feel comfortable going out and investigating any type of incident, anything that does occur in order to find out that root cause. Okay, why do we want to investigate? That's the first thing. Number one, it's not fault finding. We don't want to try to place blame on anybody. That's not what we're shooting for. Many times in our industry, unfortunately, that's what we do. Right? We go out, we have an incident that occurs, we have an accident that occurs. And the very first thing we do is place the blame on someone. Well, that's not what we're shooting for, right? We're not really accomplishing anything like that, okay? What we want to investigate, though, and why we want to do it, number one, is to prevent injuries and illnesses, right? We want to prevent a recurrence of this incident from taking place. If we can prevent the recurrence of the incident, that's going to save us time, that's going to save us money, and it's also going to prevent somebody from getting hurt, right? That's what we want to do there. Save lives, save money, and then also it shows a commitment to health and safety. As we go through our industry, we always say safety is first. And so by coming out there and investigating the incidents that occur, investigating near misses, things of that nature, then we're actually able to say, hey, you know what? We are committed to the health and safety of our employees. And that's what we want to shoot for, okay? It also gives us a positive morale. If we can take incident investigation and turn it into something positive rather than for the negative that is portrayed, a lot of times that's going to improve the morale. We'll have a lot more reports turned in. We'll have our near misses turned in. People will not be afraid to sit out there and discuss what's going on and what's happening. And then finally, it gives improves management awareness. It lets our management know what's going on in the field. Many times in our industry, we try to kind of keep things from up front, right? We don't want management to be worried. However, the more we can involve management and the more we can make them aware of what's actually going on out in the field and what's occurring around the office area, then they're able to make the decisions that they need to make in a more educated way, right? They're able to, they don't have blinders on. They don't think everything's great because the information that we provide and the information that we can give them can then be used as a tool to help them see where they may have any deficiencies in the safety and things of that nature, okay? Here you see a really important statistic here in 2017, about 5,147 workers died, averaged out about 100 workers per week and 14 deaths per day. Now, of course, that's across all industries, right? That's not just the utility industry, that's every industry that's out there. But my question I always ask is, are you willing for it to be one of your people, right? Do you want one of these 4 million Americans who get injured every year? Do you want that to be one of your guys? And the answer is no. I don't think any employer or anybody out there wants one of their employees to get injured. So it's really important that we conduct this investigation, and as employees, we should want them to come conduct that investigation to look at where we made a mistake or where something went wrong, and what can we do differently and what can we have learned from in order to prevent it from happening again, okay? OSHA talks about the fatal 4. You can see here falls about 33.5% of the time, struck by 11.1% of the time, electrocutions 8.5% of the time for our injuries, and then caught in between, crushing 5.5% of the time. So looking at these 4, it's really important for us to understand that's kind of what we're going to pay our attention to. If you have broken legs, broken arms, was it caught in between? Was it struck by something? Electrocutions, hopefully in our industry, those are going away. As much as we preach rubber gloves, rubber sleeves, things of that nature, we're putting up our grounds, air gaps, testing for voltage. The way hopefully we can in our industry, we'll see these numbers drop. But as we put a focus here, we got to make sure that we also don't omit these other 3 as well. Okay. some of your most cited in the general industry standard, you'll have your HAZCOM, respiratory protection, and then these over here, these are some big ones: control of hazardous energy, lockout, tagout. That directly affects us. We deal with that a lot. If we look at the majority of our accidents that's even occurred so far this year in our industry, it's been a failure to do lockout, tagout. Not putting up grounds, not getting those open air gaps. And so by continuously allowing that to happen, it's obvious that our incident investigation and what we're coming out there and looking at isn't very effective. The first thing we do is we show up and somebody didn't put up a grounds, we'll say, okay, the reason why he didn't put up grounds is because he's taking a shortcut. Well, that may not necessarily be the truth. They may not have been trained. It may be it may be something that the organization does. It's an organizational behavior, and that's what we got to dive into, right? We got to look and make sure that the reasons why people aren't doing what they're supposed to isn't because they're bad employees, but it's because they're not properly trained and because we're not enforcing those standards, right? When's the last time that somebody came out there and looked at one of your jobs after hours? Because the majority of our incidents occur during after hours situations. Are we coming out there and taking a look? And if we're not coming out there and taking a look, why is that? Is the organization failing the employee? And that's where this incident investigation comes in. It allows us to see where we fall short. It allows us to see the mistakes that we're making and see what we can do differently in order to prevent something from occurring, okay? So why do we investigate? We do know that many more near misses or close calls happen than our incidents that actually occur, okay? Now you notice here a near miss basically is luck, right? Because someone got lucky, nothing happened. Well, see, I'm not a believer in luck, so this really doesn't do me any good. But when you look at this, practically all the harmful incidents and close calls are preventable. So if we take a look at those near misses, we look at these close calls and we realize, if something would have changed, if something would have been done differently, that an accident could have occurred or someone could have gotten injured. The best example I can share actually happened to me. Y'all know me, the examples I try to share are things that I went through, and y'all probably heard this before. Whenever we put that pole through the dump truck, right? About 3 days earlier, we were pulling out of the yard and we kind of lost the pole the exact same way. Well, it was a near miss then because nobody got hurt, nothing got damaged. We all kind of just, fussed at the guy, said you were driving too fast, and we pressed on about our business. Well, 3 days later, sure enough, we had the exact same issue occur, but this time the pole went through a dump truck, right? It turned into an accident. So if we take a look at these near misses and we take a look at these close calls and realize that, hey, this could have been bad if someone had gotten hurt, there's where our difference comes in. And that's kind of the attitude we got to get out of, right? We got to change our attitude and change the way we look at things, okay? And make sure that we look at it for what it is, okay? This program is going to use the term incident. We're not going to use the term accident, right? Reason being is because accidents come to be considered as a random event that, oh, well, it just happened. It could not have been prevented, all right? So if someone runs into you and you got, everything out that you're supposed to have out, then you could consider that an accident because there was nothing you can do about it. Unfortunately, in our industry, and the way we sometimes say things is, that's the nature of the business that we're in. Guys, I'm here to tell you that's a terrible attitude, right? And if a good incident prevention program will show us that. It'll show that, hey, look, this isn't just the nature of the beast. It's because this behavior or what we're doing here is what led up to this accident occurring. And that's what we're trying to educate ourselves on, to understand that root cause, identify the root cause, and then go from there, okay? So an incident is a work-related event in which an injury or ill health or fatality occurred or could have occurred, okay? Regardless of severity. It doesn't matter if you pinched your finger, stumped your toe, or cut your arm off, right? None of that matters. It's still an incident, okay? And by that being an incident, that needs to be investigated, all right? So you stubbed your toe, say you broke your toe, right? It may not seem that significant, it may not seem that important, but why did it break? Well, was your PPE where it needed to be? Were you doing the things that you needed to do? Was your work area set up in a manner to where it prevented something from striking your foot? Just things we need to think of there, okay? Root causes, that's the underlying reasons why unsafe conditions exist, or if a procedure or safety rule is not followed in the workplace. So we want to figure out what caused that behavior, what caused that individual to do exactly what they did, right? Why was that decision made? What caused them to make that decision? We have to ask ourselves, and this is kind of difficult here, was it a management reflection, right? Are we pushing pushing, get the lights on, get this done, and not really sitting back and saying, okay, are we teaching the right way? Let's face it, we're making videos now for you guys because of COVID-19 or whatever you call it. So when COVID-19, whenever it's over with, we get back to work full strength, or we're going to be go, and setting our employees up for failure, or are we going to realize that, hey, this has set everything back, it's slowed everything down, so we got to get back to business as usual, and we're going to do it in a very timely manner. And that's what we got to ask ourselves, okay? Is it a design flaw? Right? Is it an organizational or operational failing? This is the big one right here. And guys, this one's tough because we have to ask ourselves, did the organization fail our employees? And that's what's so difficult, because that means you're going to have to accept responsibility, and nobody really wants to do that. Nobody wants to look at what we're doing and say, yep, this was our fault that this occurred. So we got to ask ourselves those difficult questions in order to have a good incident prevention program, and in order to figure out that root cause, okay? We have to realize that a close call is an incident that could have caused serious injury or illness but did not. It's also called a near miss, right? In our industry, there's a lot of close calls, a lot of near misses. Oftentimes, those go unreported. Y'all heard me say in several meetings, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? What happens on the crew stays on the crew. We got to get out of that mentality. We have to realize that there are certain things we need to get reported, things we need to talk about in order to prevent those issues from happening, okay? So why do we want to investigate? What's the importance of it? It gives those employers and workers the opportunity to identify hazards in their operations and shortcomings in their safety and health programs. It allows us to take a look at the way we do our jobs, the way that we look and conduct our business, and ask ourselves, are there built-in shortcomings in our health and our safety and health programs? Have we already established by the way we do business, have we already built in a shortcut that's going to lead to an injury that we didn't mean to? Okay, and we got to really take a hard look at that. Once again, that's analyzing our processes. Take a look at our processes and asking ourselves if we're doing things the right way. Okay, once again, it does improve morale and increases productivity. If you got employees that are 100% healthy, if they're walking around with no back injuries, no aching muscles, no hurt knees, because of the way we're going about our jobs, our morale and our productivity levels are going to increase, they're going to improve, right? And that's what we want. So, we can increase our productivity not by, hey, you got to go faster, but by making sure we provide a work routine and a set of procedures that eliminates the injuries and accidents that occur. Because you can go as fast as you want, then all of a sudden you have an accident and it shuts everything down. And that's something we want to try to avoid, okay? We want to make sure that we do things the right way, and that way we can prevent these injuries and accidents from taking place, okay? OSHA wants employers to investigate all workplace incidents. That includes close calls, okay? If you have a close call, a near miss, whatever you guys call it, your organization, we want to make sure that we investigate those as well. Because if we don't investigate them, all we're doing is setting ourselves up for failure in the future, okay? If we can take that time to go investigate that near miss, that close call, and we can say, okay, what caused that situation to occur? Why did that employee take that chance? Why did that employee, say, hey, this is what I need to do here? We can prevent that from reoccurring in the future. That's the whole point of this investigation. That's the whole purpose of our safety programs. Are we forward thinking or are we reactive? So many times in our industry, we're very reactive. What we got to do is we got to figure out how we can be more forward thinking in order to prevent these injuries from taking place, okay? Root causes and incident prevention tools should be an integral part of our occupational safety and health management program. So by looking at our incident investigation, we can use that as part of our safety program to prevent these injuries from happening. Once again, to identify our root causes and make the changes that we need to make, okay? We can see here, workplace injuries can save about $39,000 per employee a year, right? And a fatality is about 1.4 million. So if we have an employee that if something results in a fatality, you're looking at $1.5 million, right? That's going towards the family. I'll say this when it comes to all this. If I'm a CEO, if I'm in some sort of management position, if I have an employee that gets hurt, injured, paralyzed, killed, whatever it may be, $1.4 million is not even going to touch it, right? Because I have to live with that for the rest of my life, okay? So that goes back to that morale issue we were talking about, right? That we can sit there and we can understand the benefits to us are a lot more than money. You guys are an electric cooperative, and cooperative is more like a family. And so by being that family and understanding that family dynamic and that family atmosphere, we're able to look at these benefits and realize it's a lot more money to us, right? It's about having that good face in the public. It's about being able to go to the ball game and not worry about what somebody's saying. It's about making sure that our employees go home every single day to live that good quality life. And I really believe that's what every organization desires, all right, for its employees, okay? Here's what we got to look at. This is a big one. We're investigating programs, not behaviors. All right? This is difficult. Once again, this goes back to you because we've always done things this way, right? You guys will find out later on with, we brought up pole top rescue. You know, pole top rescue, we've always practiced what? We're going to go 12, 15 foot high, right? Is that a good representation of what we want to get accomplished? Probably not. You know, we could at least say 30, 35 feet. But what's our program say? What are we allowing to happen? What are we allowing to occur? And by what we allow and what we do, that's 9 times out of 10 is what's setting us up for failure. So it says here that one central principle is the need to consider the organizational factors that create the preconditions for errors as well as the immediate causes. So we need to look at the organization and determine what we're doing as an organization that is creating that situation for our employees to get hurt. We got to ask ourselves that. Once again, that's taking that hard look at yourself, right? That's why we come around. That's why we do safety accreditation. That's why we do the things that we do in order to look at the organization as a whole and see where the organization as a whole is failing. And I hate to use that word, but that's the word you have to use, is failing that employee, right? Now we also need to take a look and do it during our instant investigations and our work procedures and see where our organization processes are helping our employees as well. You know, because ultimately, and you'll get to it at the very end, is there could be that situation where that employee just takes that chance. And when that happens, there's not a lot you can do, okay? So we got to ask ourselves several questions, okay? If a procedure or safety rule was not followed, why was that procedure or safety rule not followed? Why did that individual decide to do that? In order to identify the root causes, we got to keep asking those questions why. Right? Why would they take that chance? Why would they take that shortcut? Why would they make the decision that they made? Why did they do that? Okay. By nature, employees are good employees. Right? I'm sure if you didn't have good employees, more than likely they wouldn't be watching this video. Okay. More than likely you'd already have them moved out the door. So you have to take a look at the employees that you have, and you got to ask yourself, okay, number one, why did they make that choice? It's not because they're a bad employee, because if so, why are they watching the video? That means you've already identified behaviors, you've already seen things that they've done wrong, so why are they watching the video? That's not the case. So we're automatically going to assume that they're good employees, and so now we got to ask ourselves, what did we do to cause them to make that decision? I know once again that's difficult, but that's the nature of the beast, right? Did production pressures play a role? Okay? Did the employees feel like the production pressures permitted the jeopardizing of their safety? Did they feel like, hey, I can take this shortcut in order to get the job done? And if that's the case, that's an organizational issue, and I have to ask myself, am I setting my employees up for failure? Okay? Was the procedure out of date, or was the safety training inadequate? If so, why? Why has it not been addressed in the past? Well, a lot of times we can say it's not been addressed because we haven't done the investigations that we're supposed to do. Because we blame the employee. Because the employee got hurt, we said, well, it's the employee's fault. Let's press on about our business. Well, once again, it goes back to here's our good employee, so what are we setting them up for failure? All right, we got to ask ourselves that. We got to figure out the deficiency. Is it a workplace design? Okay, could we have done things differently? Is it an engineering issues or things we could have done different there? Is it a cultural issue? Right, what does our culture look like? How do our people feel about themselves? How do our people feel towards safety? You know, when we look at safety, we consider safety. You know, did you just click this video on and then turn around and leave and then come back and, hey, somebody take the test and we'll answer the questions later? I don't know. You know, that's a culture issue. You have to ask yourself those questions, okay? Is it a staffing issue, supervision, training? These are all things we got to ask ourselves. What caused that problem? What led to that problem? What's the root cause, right? One thing we want to try to do is not place blame. We don't want to say, hey, the reason why this occurred is because this is a bad employee. That's not what we want to shoot for. Eliminating the immediate cause is like cutting weeds, while eliminating the root cause is pulling up the root. You know, we don't want to just go over there and skim the surface and press on about our business. even though too many times in our industry, that's what we do, right? We take a look and say, this was a bad person. Well, it wasn't. You know, it kills me to say when you see guys, because, you know, one thing we try to do is we always want to blame the young guys. Well, these young guys are getting hurt. Well, no, it's not. It's the 14-year man. It's the man that's been here about 14 years. He's about 35, 36 years old. He's been in the industry for a while, and now he's kind of going at his flow and doing what he wants to do. So we got to make sure that we realize that, hey, it's not necessarily the employee. We can't just keep looking at it like that, okay? Addressing the underlying or root cause is necessary to figure out exactly what occurred, right? That's what we want to shoot for. By looking at that root cause and understanding that root cause is how we change, right, or minimize or eliminate serious consequences from future instances. All right, that's why we look at, I know a lot of you guys, there's a lot of old guys out there now that don't like the new fall restraint belt, right? Drive them crazy. You know, that thing, it takes up time. It's too difficult to use. But guess what? It took the industry about 50 years to realize that people falling off poles was breaking people's backs, or even worse, you know, getting them killed. So what they say is hey, we can put this belt on there and we're going to eliminate all our fall hazards, right? And I think pretty much, to my understanding, we're just about down to zero now when it comes to falling from wood poles, unless somebody's just done something completely negligent. For the most part, we're down to just about zero, you know, as it relates to fall injuries. So that's what we're trying to figure out. You know, why did it take so long to do that? Well, it wasn't the manly way to climb a pole. You know, you weren't manly if you didn't free climb. Well, it has nothing to do with being manly. That's what's the best way, the safest way, and that's what we got to figure out. Okay, a good effective program. All right, these are some things that it does. Clearly state easy to follow written procedures. Okay, offer collaboration between workers. That's really important. Making sure that our workers are involved in what we're doing. Implement timely corrective actions, right? If we come out there, we do an investigation, we find something's wrong, we find something's falling short, we need to get it fixed in a pretty quick manner. That's one thing that's another issue in our co-ops. We'll go out there, we'll find something that's wrong, and then we'll beat around the bush trying to get it fixed. We need to make sure that once we identify something that's wrong, we need to go ahead and get it fixed, get it repaired, get it taken care of, and determine what our procedure is, okay? What we want to look at here is that 4-step systems approach is what we're shooting for. Okay, step 1, we want to preserve, document the scene. When we show up, we want to make sure that scene is as is. We want to keep everything just like it was in order to take our pictures, okay? We want to prevent any kind of material evidence from being removed or altered. Look, every employee out there now has one of these bad boys right here, okay? You take this, you take a picture of it, you film it. Generally speaking, you're going to be pretty good to go, okay? You want to utilize cones, tapes, and their guards. You want to try to secure the area off, keep as much foot traffic out as there as you can, okay? You want to go ahead and get the employee's name, the injury description, date, location. And right here, if you got to draw pictures, draw pictures. Make sure you get that taken care of, right? Make sure we get that looked at and everything's good to go. Remember, anything you take with pictures, document those things that are likely to change or disappear and not photograph immediately. The example I share in Alaska, something we were always taught. If you ever got in a vehicle accident, especially in the wintertime, you want to go ahead and jump out and get that picture taken in. Because up there, people had a tendency just to kind of clear out a little peephole that they could drive through. Well, if you get in a vehicle accident while you're waiting on the cops to show up and that defroster's still going, what's going to happen to your windshield by the time they get there? It's going to be cleaned off, right? So if you can jump out, you can take that picture real quick and show, hey, look, this person was driving recklessly, then I can identify that as a problem, right? So those are things I need to think about. If something can change, right, weather-wise, lighting, things of that nature, get all that stuff documented as best as you can, okay? Remember that these photographs may include shots of an accident's aftermath or rescue in progress. Try to make sure, please, that you don't have any pictures of individuals in there as least amount as possible, okay? But you can also look at things like ground scars, fire damage, positions of switches on equipment. This is key right here, your ground scars. Because once everybody gets up there and they start trying to get everything cleared out, that's where your ground's going to change, right? So we want to try to make sure that we have good pictures of the way things were whenever the accident took place, okay? Once again, your wreckage, you want to try to take it from 8 points on the compass: north, northeast, east, southeast, south, southwest, west, and northwest. You want to do a 360 view, okay? You want to start Usually you want to have your wide view. You want to try to get about 300 foot away, then come into 200 foot, then come into 100 foot, then come into 50 foot, then come into about 25 foot, right? You want to try to have that good view to where I take pictures of everything that's happening. That way I can see what's going on. Make sure I just don't walk up and if it's a pole that's broke, I just want to take a picture of the broke pole. I want to try to take a picture of everything that I'm seeing, okay? You want to try to get as much of the terrain gradient as possible, all right? Once again, you want to make sure that if we got any ruts or anything of that nature, we have all that film. That way we can take a look at it and measure, okay? Also, it helps to inventory the accident site. Remember, once you take your pictures, do not throw them away, right? Save everything. Even if you make a mistake, just send it all in whenever you turn in your report, okay? It may be important to document the witness's views of the accident. So if you have somebody that's standing off here on the side and say, yep, I've seen it all, I saw what was going to take place, go over there where they were standing, take a picture from their view. All right, once again, that way you can get everything, because that picture that you're going to take for them standing there can help them refresh their memory during a court case or something like that. So please keep that in mind as well, okay? You want to collect any information. Step 2, interviews, document reviews, crew audits, right? Previous corrective actions. We want to go through and look at all the documentation that we've had on these individuals or during a situation like that. And by doing that, it allows us to do a better incident investigation and figure out what's going on. Our interview process should be fact-finding, right? We want to come in, we want to find out the facts. We want to know what was going on. We want to avoid pointing blame, all right? We don't want to pointing blame. We don't want to do that, okay? Ask the individual for their version. Don't interrupt them and don't give them what you thought happened. We don't need to hear any of that, right? We don't need to ask any leading questions. We only want to ask clarifying questions, okay? And then ask their opinion on what can be done to prevent another accident. That's really important, all right? We can ask them, hey, what can be done to prevent this from happening again? That's really important to do, okay? Step 3, once we do our step 1 is our scene analysis. Step 2 is our investigation. Step 3, determine the root cause. Let's sit down and figure out what was going on. It's good to have generally reflect management, design, planning, organizational, operational failings. And look, guys, once again, that's the difficult stuff, because now all of a sudden I'm putting the blame on somebody else except the employee. That's why we're not looking for blame. We're trying to figure out what caused the problem, right? And what can we do to fix it? It's an organizational issue. If it is, let's get that taken care of, okay? During your question and answering session for this part, all right, if a procedure or safety rule was not followed, the question is why? Why wasn't it followed? What changed? What occurred? We need to ask ourselves, is that what the organization allows? You know, if we're looking and seeing that the individuals during the day, they put on grounds and they wear their rubber gloves and they do everything they're supposed to, that takes place during the day, what organizational issue, what procedure that occurs after hours do we fall short on? And we need to identify that and try to figure that out, okay? Is the machinery or equipment damaged or fail to operate properly? If so, why is that piece of equipment still in play? You know, is the saying out there, do you know how much that costs? Well, if that's what we're worried about, then our guys are out there using equipment that they don't need to be using. All right, so we need to analyze and ask those questions, okay? Was there a hazardous condition a contributing factor? If so, why was it present? Why are we not encouraging our employees to remove all the hazardous conditions, to take a look and say, hey, this is part of my hazard identification process, and I realize that this could cause me a problem. Why are they not doing that? Okay, are we not training them to do that? Once again, that becomes an organizational issue, how we train our employees. Are we just training them to go out there and get the job done and not recognize the hazard? We got to ask ourselves those questions, okay? Was the location of equipment, materials, workers a contributing factor? If so, why? Do they not know how to set the trucks up? Have we not trained them to properly do that? Once again, it goes back to a training issue. A lot of the times, the injuries and accidents that are taking place are because of the training aspect of it, because they're doing the best that they can, right? They're doing what they're being taught, but are we teaching the right way, right? That may be where we fall short. We got to ask ourselves those difficult questions, okay? Was lack of PPE or emergency equipment a contributing factor? Why is that? Why do they not have the correct PPE for the job? Why are they not using it? And if they're not, we got to ask ourselves, why hadn't we got it for them, right? Those are questions we need to ask, okay? Was a management program affect a contributing factor? If so, why? You know, once again, I want to give some examples here. Cultural culture of improvisation to sustain production goals. Instead of using a rated sling, I'm gonna go grab a collar rope, right? Are those the type of things that we have in place that are setting our employees up for failure? And we need to ask that question, okay? Was there a deviation from a job procedure? And why is that, okay? What kind of supervisor accountability is there? Do they not understand how responsible they are? You know, once again, those are questions that we gotta be asking ourselves. Now, once we do all that, now step 4 is the implementation of corrective actions, okay? The investigation is not complete until corrective actions are implemented and that address the root cause of the incident. It's a lot more than, I'm just gonna give Jamie time off, right? That's not what we're shooting for. That's not gonna help us out. You know, that just because I give him time off, we believe in our minds that that's gonna make everybody change. Well, if the reason why I'm giving them time off is because of the way that our procedures are, nothing's gonna change, because it's just gonna be another person that gets hurt, injured, or even worse. So that's what we gotta look at, right? We gotta look and figure out what's the root cause, and then how do we change that from happening again? All right, and then once again, that's where it becomes difficult, because now we're having to analyze ourselves. And we're looking and saying, well, man, John, we've always done it this way. Well, that's great. I'm glad you've always done it that way. And the good news is nobody ever got hurt up until this point. And so because we look at our incident investigation and realize that, you know what, we've had a lot of near misses, a lot of close calls, nothing's ever happened. Now all of a sudden something's take place. Now what change are we going to be willing to make? That's what we got to do. We got to be willing to make that change, okay? Some global corrective actions we can do. Strengthen the development of written comprehensive safety and health management program. In other words, we can grow our program a little bit, okay? How we purchase things, how our safety inspections look. Those are all things that we can do that can help make those changes. Lastly, man, we got to ask ourselves, was there a human error, right? When a thorough worksite investigation reveals that some person or persons among management, supervisor, and the workers were apparently at fault, then we can say, okay, it was human error. But it takes a long time to get to this. And so many times we do it the exact opposite. We start here because surely it's not our fault. Surely it's not a procedural issue. We start here and then go from there. And guys, that's what we got to get out of. Okay, we gotta realize that yes, this may exist. Yes, there's some of that. But we also have to ask ourselves, what are we doing that leads to this? Okay, and so once we can get to that level there, then we can say we have a good incident investigation program. Okay. An effective process is crucial to the continued improvement of an organization's health and safety program. Take the time, find the root cause, and ask why, right? In order to be successful, in order to get done what we want to get done, in order to make sure that our employees go home every day just as they came to work, it's extremely important for us to make sure that we get this incident investigation program, that we get the pieces put in place, that look, we can't take offense to the fact that there may be a process that we do that's setting our employees up for failure. If that's the case, let's get it changed and let's get everybody home every day. We appreciate it. You guys have a great day.
Dude, that was horrible.
Tell you what was horrible.
Well, that had to be an hour and a half. How long was that?
33 minutes.
Yeah, you got preacher mode up there, John.
I always get in